Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden, and I've got a collaboration beer for you today that I think will be very, very interesting. Two breweries that are really quite well regarded when it comes to the IPA category. So for this one we are going to go to Helsingborg, which is still here in Skåne in the south of Sweden, one of my favourite Swedish craft breweries, and we're having a look at the Way Green. So this is a double IPA coming in at 8% ABV, mango, lime, spirulina, cyanobacteria and also lactose added to this one, and this is a collaboration beer that they've done with Mikrofonbryggeriet, who are from up in Gothenburg, a sort of gypsy contract brewery, those ones. But the last beer I had from those guys, which was an IPA as well, and I remember thinking that this was a very, very good beer. So I think, we've got two breweries here, as I say, that are very good at IPAs, so I'm really curious to see what this beer has in store. And like I say, it's got a little bit of a kind of unusual adjunct profile here, especially the spirulina. That cyanobacteria, I think, will add some very, very interesting flavours to this beer, I think. So very much looking forward to trying this one, and as always, I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the breweries involved here. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery websites, a link to my other reviews that I've done from Brewski and from Mikrofonbryggeriet. No doubt I will add more from both in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then, to tell you a little bit about Brewski first off then. So Brewski Mikrobryggerie were founded back in 2014 in Helsingborg here in Skåne in the very south of Sweden. A very pretty city, and one that you definitely need to visit if you find yourself down here. But the founders of the company are Marcus Hjalmarsson, Johan Britsen, Alfred Olsson and Robin Skoglund, all of whom were largely inspired to start their own brewery after drinking the West Coast American craft beers. But Marcus was originally associated with the High Nose brand of beer, which was brewed at Höganäs Brewery, a little bit again to the northwest of Helsingborg, a very pretty part of Skåne up there as well. And some of those beers are still brewed there, although all the production of all of the Brewski beers are now brewed at their own brewery that they have in Helsingborg. This one now has a capacity of around 100,000 litres of beer per month, so it is a fairly big operation that they have now. In 2016 they also started their own beer festival, which is called Brewskival. I went to the second one of it. The first iteration I think had about 40 different brewers, but it's been expanding year on year, and it's one of the best beer festivals in Scandinavia actually. So if you get the chance to go to that one, I highly recommend that you do. I will be there again this year, and I'm very much looking forward to that. But they also now have their own bar in Helsingborg now, which is called Brewski. They used to open up the brewery once a month and call it Brewski, but now they have their own bar which is selling ramen, an American take on ramen actually, and a lot of the different Brewski craft beers, as well as other ones both from the local area in Skåne and further afield than that. And I really would recommend that you go and check that bar out. One of the best craft beer bars, I think, that you're going to find in Skåne just now. My other favourite place is the Tap Room in Malmö, of course, and Beer Ditch is very good too. But yeah, as I've said a couple of times about this one, Brewski, if you're really into your IPAs, this is a brewery that you definitely want to check out. They've always got some interesting stuff there, and they're constantly producing new things. The only difficulty with Brewski here in Sweden, of course, is getting a hold of all of the beers that they do because of the Systembolaget system. But if you go across the Copenhagen and things, you usually can get the more unusual ones and the new releases fairly easily if you go to places like Kiosk and things like that. So if you do get the chance to try any of these Brewski beers, I highly recommend that you do. One of the best craft breweries that you're going to find over here in Sweden. So yeah, make sure you check out their beers, and very good for their Faber series actually, the fruit IPAs. Those are very, very good beers, and mainly it's IPAs, but when you get an Imperial Stout and things from these guys too, it does tend to be pretty good. I just wish they experimented with different styles a little bit more, but a very good brewery, and as I say, one of my favourite ones is here in Sweden. If you want to learn a little bit more, of course, you can check out the brewery website in the description below, and you can follow them on Facebook and Untappd and Twitter and Instagram and all those kind of things, and that'll keep you up to date with all the latest goings on at the brewery. So anyway, on to the Mikrofonbryggeriet then. So the Mikrofonbryggeriet is the brainchild of a guy called Nikola Sarcevich, who's a singer and songwriter for the band Millencolin, and these guys have been making music since 1993. But the band was originally based in Örebro, out to the west of Stockholm, but then they took a break when Nikola moved to Gothenburg. So in 2013 he began homebrewing with his friend Christian Silva while he was studying international marketing in Skövde. And the two were brewing very small 20-litre batches together, but then Nikola went to Berlin for 2 weeks to study a brewing course, and the two then started to build a company together with themselves, and it was based for a while in Nikola's house, and then they were brewing very small 200-litre batches. But from what I understand now, they actually go around and brew at other slightly larger facilities around Gothenburg and just take space where they can. I think the brewing circles and the craft beer circles in Gothenburg are very kind of tight-knit, and there's a hell of a lot of little craft breweries popping up there now, so there's a lot of spare capacity for them to use. So these guys, from what I understand, are brewing other people's breweries at the moment, but they are very well regarded when it comes to the IPA category. The last IPA that I had from these guys was very, very good, and I hope that I can do a few more dedicated reviews to them over the next little while. But one of the kind of up-and-coming breweries that you're going to find in Gothenburg, which, as I've told you many a time, is the beer city when it comes to Sweden these days. So if you get the chance to try some of those Mikrofonbryggeriet beers, I really recommend that you do. The one that I had was pretty damn good, and I've tried one or two more on tap, so you'll always get something good from these guys. But that's all you really need to know about Mikrofonbryggeriet, and indeed the other brewery in this one. If you want to learn a little bit more about Mikrofon, then you can check out the brewery website in the description below, and of course you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram, and that'll keep you up to date with all the latest goings on there. But anyway, let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer itself then. So as I told you at the start of the video, this one is an 8% double IPA. They've added mangoes, limes, spirulina, which is a type of cyanobacteria, very, very nice, and also some lactose to the brew as well. So yeah, let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer then. I'll just read the little blurb that you get on these. I always like reading the little Brewski blurbs that you have on the beers. So it says, way green double IPA, too green, too lush, too fresh, or too much cabbage, too far away from the green grass of home, green Sally up or green Sally down. Peaceful sunlight through green leaves in the spring, or green with envy and poison. Naive, eco-friendly, sickening, new, fresh. Take this hoppy, fruity green double IPA with mango and lime in your hand and find out what green can be. So yeah, I think this one should be really interesting. There you can see the artwork on it, just a kind of simple green arm. You always get some interesting kind of minimalist artwork from Brewski. There you can see the symbols of both breweries on the side there. There's the little blurb that I read to you just a minute ago, and of course there's the little Brewski man on the top of the bottle cap there. So yeah, let's get this guy out then and we'll get on with the tasting. This one, I'm pretty sure it will actually be green in colour, just looking from the bottle. I'm not sure how well you can see that on the camera, but I'm really curious just to see how this one turns out. So let's get it out and into the glass. Yeah, now that looks really quite weird actually. I think I've only ever drank one other green beer, and it was one of the Berliner Weisses. It was Forest, was it called Waldsgrün or something like that? I had one of these beers. It was my old friend Toby that brought me that actually. And he brought it back from Berlin, and it was one of his favourite Berliner Weiss beers. It was by Berliner Kindle, I'm sure, actually. But yeah, this is only the second ever green beer that I've reviewed for you here on the channel, so not quite sure what to think about this one. So as you can see, it's almost like a kind of toothpastey. It looks like, you know, one of these vegetable shake sort of things that some strange people are into, I would say. But yeah, it's, you know, the same kind of consistency as a hazy New England IPA. You could see there was about a quarter finger of a white frothy head on this one, but that's faded away just to be a very thin foamy layer. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, and a few little ones just heading up towards the bottom of that head there. I'm guessing that the green colour in this one comes from the bacteria that they've added to. I forget the name of it now, it's gone right out of my head. That's gonna annoy me now actually. I'm not sure where that's come from, but I did tell you at the start of the video there. But yeah, it looks very, very nice. That definitely really quite curious actually. You can smell some of the green notes off this just as you're kind of swirling it around. But let's take a closer look at the aroma and just see how we get on with this one. Yeah, that does smell really very unusual, I have to say. It does have this kind of green vegetal element to it, very green and grassy if you like. But yeah, definitely some limey notes coming out of this one. A little touch of mango, I think, as well. But yeah, very limey, very mango-y. There is a little bit of a kind of passion fruity, apricot-y type thing in this as well. There is definitely more of a kind of tropical note to this, but it really does have a sort of vegetal, kind of herbal underlying to it. Some grassy notes, little touch of earthiness. Yeah, it's a really just unusual aroma, that. You can pick out that there's a little bit of a kind of wheaty, bready sort of thing underneath it. And maybe a little touch of a biscuity sweetness as well, but really it is that sort of greeny, sort of green vegetable note that's popping out of this one. It says in this one they've got wheat and oats in this one. There's a little touch of rye in there as well, actually, which is kind of interesting. You do get a little bit of, you do get a little touch of a kind of grainy spice to it as well, which I'm guessing will be the rye. But really, the main notes to this one, as I say, you've got that oaty, wheaty base to it, a lot of green, grassy and floral hops. Yeah, a little touch of a kind of mango note to it. Yeah, little touch of a mango limey note. But yeah, it's a really interesting one, that the aroma is very, very unusual. I mean, it does pretty much smell kind of what you would expect, or as you would expect when you read what's actually in the beer, but I can't help but feel the green colours coming from that bacteria, that cyanobacteria they've added to this one, and probably a little bit from the lime as well. So yeah, let's just have a taste of this beer and see what they think. This is definitely one of the more unusual looking beers that I've tried for you on the channel. So this one is called the Way Way Green, from Brewski Mikrobryggerie and Mikrofonbryggeriet, who are both from here in Sweden. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål! I tell you something, it's kind of unusual, but it does work. Now, it reminds me actually of that, what was it called? The one that we had, the one that had the tonka beans in it from Dugas Brewery. It's kind of like that. It's something that, you know, you're really not sure to expect from it when you try, but when you try it, it is actually, it really does work actually. So I like how this beer is going together. Yeah, and you can tell, I'm drinking this one kind of pretty fresh. It does still have a good bit of that green hoppy element to it, so just be aware of that when you try this one. It says that it's best before the 13th of the 9th 2020, so I'm guessing that's been bottled somewhere around the middle of March. So yeah, it's only been in the bottle about 3 weeks, this one, so it will still have a good bit of that green hoppy freshness to it. You maybe want to leave it another week or two and just let it settle down a little bit, right enough, but even as it's fresh, it still will be pretty damn good. But yeah, I like how this beer kind of works. As I say, it's an unusual flavour combination, but it somehow manages to pull it off. So let's just kind of take this flavour in stages then and see how we get on. So in the middle of your palate you can feel this nice, smooth, wheaty, white bready quality there. That's just blanket in the middle of your tongue. On top of that, you've got a nice kind of oaty creaminess. There is a little bit of a grainy sort of quality to this beer as well, which I'm guessing will be the rye. You can feel that in the middle of your palate, just as it as the middle of your palate dries out. There's a little touch of a biscuity sweetness in the very, very centre of your tongue too, and that works really nicely. The bacteria is given the middle of the beer this it is almost a little bit like a kind of an almost sort of chickpea flavour, you know, sort of chickpea. It actually reminds me, it's almost a little bit similar to like the falafel balls or something like that, falafel bulla. The flavour, there's a little touch of that kind of vegetal flavour in this one, but it really blends in very, very well. I mean, as I was saying, that beer that I had from was it Tonkinilla Mango Orange or something, I think it was called, from Dugas Brewery. This beer is kind of like that. It's got one of these really unusual things in it, but it works really, really quite well. All that I can think of is that, you know, they must have tried this on a little, you know, 20-litre brew or something and thought, you know, Jesus, that actually works. And then they've done it on the big scale and they've pulled it off really quite nicely, actually. So I have to say, you know, kudos to both Brewski and Mikrofonbryggeriet for actually even thinking to do a beer like this. This is definitely one of the more unusual IPAs that I've come across in recent times, but they seem to be getting more and more into this here in Sweden, adding random adjuncts to beer and pulling it off quite well. So, you know, if they're giving you beers that test your palate a little bit more, then, you know, more power to them. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things for this beer then, back corners of the palate, I think there's a teeny little bit of earthiness there. As you come further forward along the side of the tongue, there is a little, the earthiness does spread forward a little bit. You get towards the very front corners of the palate and you've got a nice spicy floral aromatic quality to the beer. And then yeah, round the front curve of the palate, it's just a little bit lighter and more kind of grassy and things like that, but you can feel a little bit, I'm drinking this beer very fresh, so I can feel a little bit of the almost kind of green burniness out of the hops, but the cyanobacteria in this one, you really can feel that a little bit. It's annoying me that the name's gone right out of my head actually. It doesn't have it in Spirulina, that's it, Spirulina. The Spirulina in this one is giving it this really almost, it almost just has a little bit of that kind of chickpea sort of kidney bean type quality to the beer, and it blends in really well with the oats and the wheat in this beer. It's just a very interesting complexity that it adds to the flavour actually. I really like how it goes together. So yeah, just pay attention to the middle of your palate on this one and you get some really, really interesting flavours out of this beer. On the fruity side of things, I think there's a good little bit of a kind of a passion fruity sort of flavour to this one. If you go behind the front curve of your palate, of course, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters start to come out of the beer. I would think that in this beer, I think they might have used a little bit of Simcoe or a little bit of Galaxy in it because of the way the passion fruit's coming out. Now, it does have a little touch of a darker grapefruity note to it. So maybe there's a little bit of Citra in here as well. I would say maybe, I would guess that maybe they've used a little bit of a Galaxy and Citra in here. If they're adding like lime to the beer, you know, the hop that really would go with lime would be Equinox, so there could be a little bit of that in here, because the lime, you can detect a little bit that the lime is coming from the hops and it is coming from the addition of the fruit to the beer. Now the key way to tell the difference there is because if you add fruit to the beer, it suppresses a little bit of the green side of the hops. You know, you get a bit more of a fruity juiciness on the edge of your tongue. And with this beer, you can pick that up. You've got the nice limey notes there, and also the lime for me is coming out at the very front of the palate, and then the mango notes are coming out a little bit further around the sides of the tongue. You can just feel that pushing back a little bit against some of the floral qualities of the beer. So when you add fruits to the beer as an adjunct, I always find that it just pushes back a little bit on it just suppresses some of the green side of the hops, which is kind of interesting, and you can feel the beer doing that here. But you do also get the more oily qualities of the fruits that have been extracted from the hops. So I wouldn't be surprised if they've used a little bit of Equinox in here, because you can detect a little bit of that limey quality coming out of the beer. I think they've used Citra as well. You know, Citra gives you the mangoes, but it's got a good level of complexity to it, that it can also give you some lemon limey notes, which could be contributing to this as well. But I think there's a bit of passion fruit in here, and if it's passion fruit, I think there'll be some Simcoe or there'll be a little touch of Galaxy in here. The interesting thing for me with this beer is that I don't think the lactose is coming out too much in this one. Yeah, I mean, to me, the lactose, if you add a bit of lactose to the beer, it comes out very kind of distinctively, but I think the bacteria in this one, the name's gone out of my head again. I'm really not remembering this day. The Spirulina. The Spirulina, I think, is contributing a little bit to the sort of vegetal kind of. There is almost an element of a vegetable sort of quality to this beer in the middle of the palate. and those kind of chickpea, kidney bean sort of notes there. There's almost just a little bit of a greeny note in the middle of your palate as well. That the lactose I would have thought would smooth that out, but I think the lactose is quite minimal in this one, and it doesn't make the flavour too much smoother, if you like, which is kind of interesting. So just pay attention to that side of the beer. The further you go into the flavour of it, it's really interesting how all these different flavours go together, and I do like how we get on with this beer. The flavours, it's a very interesting combination of flavours, much like the vanilla. The Tonkinilla Mango Orange that I had from Dugas Brewery. This is one that really is going to test your palate a little bit. So a big thumbs up to Brewski and Mikrofon for even thinking to try something like this, as I said earlier. In terms of the mouthfeel then, this one is, I would say it's a mid-bodied beer. The carbonation is very smooth. The mouthfeel, I think, leans a little bit towards the creamy side of things, but it does have a little bit of an oily quality to it as well. Yeah, you're talking about 30, maybe 40 IBUs on this one. But as I say, I'm drinking this one very fresh, so you still get an element of greenness from the hops. Nice bit of smoothness and from the malt base. It's not too sweet, the malt base, this one. That sort of vegetal quality in this one from the bacteria and from the other parts of the malt base is kind of interesting. The malt base does dry out a good little bit in the centre of your palate, this one, but you've got some nice juicy fruity qualities to this beer, both from the hops and from the actual adjuncts that they've used in the beer. But comparing this to another beer I think would be very futile. It has that typical sort of hoppy bite and fruitiness that you would want from one of the Brewski IPAs, but the malt base has a little bit of difference to it because of the bacteria in this one. And again, the name's gone right out my head. Spirulina. I keep wanting to say like lupulomycin or something like that. But it's the spirulina in this one really is adding a very interesting character to the beer. So if you want, as I say, if you want something a little bit different, then just have a go at this beer for yourself. As I say, only the second green beer that I've reviewed for you here on the channel. So yeah, if nothing else, just have a go at this beer for the kind of novelty aspect of it. So yeah, an interesting one this, and a thumbs up to both breweries for even thinking to produce something like that. So this one is the Way Green, a double IPA coming in at 8% ABV with some really interesting spirulina bacteria in it that gives it a really unusual character. It's almost a little bit like a kind of falafel-y kidney bean type consistency, but it does have a little bit of a more kind of vegetal, herbal kind of aspect to it as well, and you can really feel the greenness from the hops in this beer because it is so fresh. But have a go at it for yourself and just see what you think. But it has everything you would want from a Brewski IPA that you would normally expect, and it has everything you'd want from a Mikrofonbryggeriet IPA as well, but just something a little bit more unusual in this one. But let's leave it at that for this beer. The Way Green, a double IPA coming in at 8% ABV with mangoes, lime, lactose and a little bit of spirulina bacteria in it for good measure that gave it this really interesting green colour. But once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your favourite beers from Brewski and from Mikrofonbryggeriet in the description below. Let me know what your own thoughts on this one were, and I will catch you guys very soon. Make sure you check out my social media. But once again, this one was the Way Green, a collaboration beer from Brewski Mikrobryggeri in Helsingborg here in Skåne in the south of Sweden, and Mikrofonbryggeriet who are from Gothenburg. Until the next time, Slanger just now, and I'll catch you guys very soon. Skål.